So the mouth is going to be one eye length away from the septum. So take your pencil again, measure out the eye that you've been measuring, whether it's the left or the right one. So line it up with the inside corner, pinch the pencil on the outside corner, line it up to the septum, and you're going to mark where that one eye is. Huh? So that is one eye length away. And we are going to be drawing our person having a closed mouth. So lips touching, just like in this picture. Okay, we're drawing a very similar one. Now, if you look at the corner of his mouth, both corners go past the nose, the width of the nose. They line up pretty close to the pupil, right? And I'll show you what people tend to do, or commonly tend to do, when they draw lips. So when people draw lips, this is what they tend to make them look like. Right? But then they look like no one's lips look like that. I don't care if you're Jay-Z. Jay-Z doesn't even have lips that look like that, right? He's got big lips, right? But they still look like they're part of his face, even though they're bigger, right? Everyone's lips, no matter how big or how small they are, they start off really thin on the corners of the mouth, okay? And then they have the volume. So even Jay-Z, his lips don't instantly start this big, right? They start really thin on the corners, and then they get big, right? And remember how I said this yesterday? The lower lip tends to be bigger than the upper lip on average, okay? All right, so this, let's say this is going to be, let me see something. I just want to make sure. This is going to be the center line of our person's mouth. So this mark here that we just made is this line here, where the two meet, okay? So we're going to extend that line so that this line, or this starting point, lines up to the iris on the left, and this line lines up with the iris on the right, okay? So with that mark, draw the line across so that the left one roughly lines up with the iris on the left, and the right one roughly lines up with the iris on the right. Notice where my nose is at. So if you drew your person's nose as wide as your person's mouth, you need to reshape the nose, okay? All right, I'm going to start with the lower lip first. So start really close. I start at the corner here, hug the center line for a little bit, and then I dip it down to that center line, and then do the same thing on the other side, okay? And it'll kind of look like that, that sad lip that sometimes little kids make, right? And if you want your person to have bigger lips, by all means, go ahead. If you want them to be thinner, that's fine too. Just make sure that you start your person's lips like this on the corners. Really thin on the corners, and then it bulges up in the center. Okay? All right. Upper lip. The upper lip has two little peaks right here. There's one here, and there's one here. Some people have it more defined than others, right? But we start the upper lip the same way we start the lower lip. In the corners, really thin, right? And then those peaks, the peak on the left starts a little before that center line, and then it dips down to the center line, and then again on the other side. And then same thing, you hug the corner. And try and make the peaks look symmetrical if you can. All right. Does everyone notice that you tend to have two lines here on your face? And those lines match up to your peaks on your upper lip. There's a reason for that. So these lines here, sometimes they're more defined than others. I'm going to make it kind of noticeable so you can see it. I'll erase it in a minute though. So the reason why we have these peaks, so when you cry, right, and you have the runny nose, or when you have a cold, your boogers are coming out of your nose, these allow those boogers or that sweat or whatever to drip to the sides of your mouth and not go into your mouth. Unless you were that one kid that loved to eat the boogers. All right, now we're ready for the shading. I feel like the upper lip is a little too thin. I'm going to make it just a little bigger. Seems like it's out of proportion for the rest of his face. By the way, if you wanted to give your person a septum piercing, by all means, go for it. That's a little more proportional. All right. The center of the mouth, where the lips touch, tend to be the darkest. And notice how I'm going to zoom in on the mouth. So what I did here is I made it a little darker right in the center here. Okay. So the way you shade the lips is like a cylinder. The light is the most in here in the center. So it's a little darker towards the center of the lips where the lips touch. As I go to the bottom lower lip, I make it lighter in the center. Let me erase that center line. So I make it lighter in the center, and then I make it darker again towards the bottom of the lower lip. So we tend to have a little bit of a highlight here. And depending on if your person has dry lips, sometimes you see those like cracks in people's lips. So like his, just a little bit, these little creases that show up, right? And then the upper lip, similar, pretty dark towards the center where the lips are touching. But the lightest part of the upper lip tends to be the top portion up here because it curves out. Our lips curve out. Okay? Common thing that people do for mouths, they outline the whole mouth and they make it super dark. No one has naturally really dark outlines. So if you look at the picture here, see how his lower lip, that outline, quote unquote, is actually way lighter than the rest of his skin around it, right? And we will do that when we start shading the rest of the face. Okay. So there's the mouth. Again, notice how far to the left and to the right lined up with the iris on both sides. Your mouth, the corners of your person's mouth should be wider than the nostrils, right? And your person's lower lip should be a little bigger than the upper lip. So this is starting to look less and less like a mask, right?